What do you need to know as a healer? I think as far as pure healing goes, things should be pretty self-evident. Use your abilities on your allies and heal them. I can think of two things off the top of my head, though, that separate good healers from bad ones. And, in all honesty, good players from bad ones. First is positioning. In order to heal someone, you obviously need to have them on your screen, either with your Q or W, or to know where to properly target your E. The default advice is in the back with the other clothies, behind the tanks. But while this is generally true, it's not always true. Even more important, in my opinion, than standing behind your tanks is not standing on top of your allies. When your enemy engages, they're going to be looking for clumps of clothies. Where are the clothies located? Probably behind the tanks. Because of the locked screen of Albion, when an engage starts, it's likely that you can only really see the enemy front line. We just assume that the clothies will be behind them. This also pulls in the common lines of damage, which is a separate video, but the gist is that the enemy is going to engage onto a location or in a direction. Their engage will have a certain width or radius that is generally smaller than your E casting range. So you should be able to stand somewhere where you can see what is happening, but you're not involved in what's happening. Remember that your enemy is looking to hit clumps of enemies, so if you're standing off to the side by yourself, you can often get away with very forward positioning without being in too much danger. Of course, if all your healers try to have this forward/side positioning, then you run into the problem of self-clumping again. But Railhouse, why not just stand far enough back that you're out of range of their engage? Simple. 1, you don't know how far their engage is going to go because you're so far back you can't see anything. You might even completely miss that it's happening. 2, you have tanks and melees that were deep and are trying to get back to safety, and they will need heals as well. So ideally, your healers would be spread out amongst your Zerg, with some of the people focused on healing the main clump, and some of the people looking more forward, at people that are trying to get out and escape. Personally, I think healers should be in their own subcoms, but that is for the subcoms video, which I think already exists. If you're afraid of the enemy, you're going to let your teammates die. If you're not afraid enough, you're going to get yourself killed. My second main point is sort of 2 points, but they're kind of related. One is understanding the flow of combat, and the other is not wasting your resources. In the simplest terms, the majority of the enemy's damage is going to incur during their engage. So one of your jobs as the healer is to try and help your team survive that damage, like that sudden burst of damage, with your healing. If you're positioned properly and understand the flow of the fight, you're going to know when the damage is coming, and you'll have a second or two before the damage hits where you'll probably know where it is going to be targeted, aka the clump of your allies. It's not magic, it'll be super obvious. You'll know it when you see it. The point is that you have to be ready for it. Sometimes you're gonna need to E outside of your engage, do what you gotta do, but remember that your E is a precious resource. If it's just one guy that needs healing, don't use your E, just queue them back up. Sometimes you see healers use their E what feels like randomly when there's no damage yet. Don't be that guy. Get value out of your spells. As a tangent, off-script tangent, one of the things that I look for when I'm doing my own personal VOD reviews is I'll essentially just kind of skip through to whenever I see my E went on cooldown, and then I'll look and did I get value out of my E? And that's kind of how, I analyzed, it sounds so much fancier than it is, but I just kind of look at here's a situation where I pressed E. Was it a good time to do it? Okay, when I see this in the future, don't press E because it wasn't a good time. Or, yes, it was a good time. Good job, Railhouse. Slightly related to the flow of combat thing is you need to understand who you're fighting. Just as an example, a little while ago, my guild was fighting against the guild Homeless Crew. At the time, they were amassing 150 people, and they usually had 3 separate engages. They had half of the main group, the second half of the main group, and then a bomb squad. Or just a smaller third group, whatever you want to call it. Each engage is pretty hefty, and Homeless Crew is a solid guild, so each one hurts. but you can't panic whenever one hits you and use all of your cooldowns on the first engage. You need to save resources for the second and the bomb squad, otherwise you're going to fall behind. The only way as a Zerg you're going to be able to do this well is if your healers are actively communicating with each other. Otherwise, you're just leaving it up to chance that some people will hold their E's while others use theirs on the first engage. Hopefully that helps. Think about where you're standing versus where you should be standing. Think about when the enemy just engaged and whether or not more damage will be coming, and use your resources effectively.